truly makes you a man? Is it just your physical features or sexual characteristics? Or does it extend to the way you act, speak, and carry yourself? In reality, all these aspects play a role. From the very dawn of humanity, being a man has been defined by more than just biology. However, in today's world, with the rise of feminism and shifting societal norms, it's hard to tell what truly makes a man a man.
I suffer from both anxiety and depression, and it can be a bit of a roller coaster ride. 1 minute you're feeling utterly worthless as a human, you'll never succeed in your goals or even the tasks that you set yourself that day, and there's this constant pressure of comparing yourself to everyone else around you who is seemingly doing so much better, and then suddenly it'll all be washed away by complete apathy, and you'll feel nothing, just entirely numb.
Even more so, distinctions between men and women are becoming less pronounced. The roles and expectations that once defined masculinity are evolving, leading to new interpretations of what you should do or not do as a man. This puts us in a world where men find themselves confused about their place in society and how they fit in. However, this documentary will enlighten you, man or woman, to see what being a man was all about, the periods that brought about great changes in what was seen as masculine or not, what being a man is all about today, and what the future holds for men. While culture, society, and individual differences play their roles, it's the biological characteristics of men that have shaped their role the most in human evolution. You must know by now that the biological foundation of men lies in their genetic composition, typically defined by an XY chromosome pair. The presence of this Y chromosome triggers the development of male reproductive organs and the production of testosterone. And this testosterone, you see, plays an important role in a man's biology. Responsible for the development of secondary sexual characteristics, it's this hormone that gives a man bigger muscle mass, a deeper voice, and facial hair. These traits, you see, have historically contributed to physical advantages men have, allowing them to do things like hunting, fighting wars, and hard labor. This is why in prehistoric times, it was easier for men to serve as hunters, providers, and protectors within the hunter-gatherer societies. Their speed, strength, and endurance made them well-suited for hunting large animals and defending against predators or rival groups. You see, there was a time when having weak men in your tribe meant you wouldn't be around for long. In a dog-eat-dog world, only the best and the strongest could survive. It wasn't just about survival. The men who succeeded in hunting and protecting their tribe earned respect and status in their communities. And with greater status comes greater rewards, more food, more service, and more women, because at this time, having more than one woman was a norm. This quality of higher status resulting in greater privileges extends to today's world, but no need to rush, we will soon get there. So you see, a man's reproductive system is built to make and deliver sperm, which is needed for reproduction. And the simple fact that men keep producing sperm even as they get older means they can father children for most of their lives. This particular ability has shaped their reproductive behavior over time. Men throughout history have a higher affinity to want multiple partners to increase the chances of passing their genes. Powerful men in history, like Genghis Khan, had primary and secondary wives. Usually, the primary wife was the queen of queens, with her children entitled to the man's inheritance. It wasn't just about having multiple wives. The concept of having concubines was also encouraged. Apart from having many wives, Khan also had several concubines. Men at a point in history used to have hundreds of wives and children. It wasn't seen as anything wrong, as long as you were able to provide for them and protect them. The role of men expanded far beyond hunting and gathering. They became the protectors of their lands, warriors tasked with defending their territories and, when necessary, conquering new ones. Among the most formidable warriors in history were the Spartans and the Vikings. Hailing from the Greek city-state of Sparta, the Spartan warriors were trained from childhood to become masters of combat. Known for their discipline and fearlessness, the Spartans epitomized the phrase, "fight to the last man." It was their honor and duty to protect their lands, even if it meant dying in the process. And then you have the Vikings, originating from Scandinavia, which is present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. These men were seafaring warriors who struck fear across Europe. Known for their unrivaled skill in the art of warfare and expert navigation skills, the Vikings raided, traded, and settled in distant lands. Like the Spartans, they were trained in combat from a young age, learning to wield swords, axes, and shields. Although DNA from archaeological findings suggests that women rose in ranks and were even warriors among the Vikings, however, most chieftains and battle leaders were often men. In ancient Greece and Rome, men were also identified by their presence in battle. But unlike the Vikings and Spartans, whose warfare was the sole focus of their existence, the ideals of masculinity here extended to cultural, philosophical, and social systems. Let's talk about ancient Rome, where men dominated society, family, public, and on the field of battle. In this particular culture, women, whether free or enslaved, had their roles limited to empress, priestess, shop owner, midwife, prostitute, daughter, wife, and mother, and they lacked any voice in public life. They didn't even have a right to their own name, taking a feminine version of their father's family name. So, for example, Gaius Julius or Marcus Terentius' daughter would take the name Julia and Terentia, respectively. Their value depended on their fathers and husbands. And when it also came to politics, you could find only men in this space. Men were also expected to serve in the military. Elite men further distinguished themselves through education, preparing them for leadership and intellectual debates. Some even become scholars. Greek society also shared similar values with the Romans in terms of the roles men and women played. Society valued men who excelled in both body and mind, with philosophers like Aristotle and Plato showing the role men played as intellectuals in this society. Every action, every decision, and every responsibility carried the weight of societal expectations, defining masculinity in these times, values that, over time, would carve out a blueprint for manhood, influencing cultures across the globe. We move to the Middle Ages, where the idea of the ideal man was shaped by the chivalric code, a set of values that turned knights into symbols of courage, loyalty, and honor. These men were protectors, sworn to defend their lands, their faith, and their loved ones. From a young age, boys trained, learning the art of combat and the weight of duty. During these times, a man's role was at the heart of both his family's survival and the larger community's stability. Marriage was far more than a romantic bond. It was a strategic social and economic contract. Families arranged unions to secure alliances, gain wealth, or acquire land, and men were expected to manage the estates, protecting and growing their family's wealth. Religion this time also played a major role in shaping the understanding of masculinity. Across different faiths, men were seen as pillars of strength, leadership, and moral guidance. In Christianity, the image of an ideal man often mirrored that of Christ, a humble, self-sacrificing, and compassionate figure. During these times, men also started to embrace the ideal of having a single wife, with the Roman Catholic Church condemning polygamy. The scriptures painted men as the head of the household, a role that carried the weight of leading their families in faith and morality.
The relational reality that God viewed and views the male as the head and the primary source of responsibility within the marriage relationship.
In Islam, the Quran described men as qawamun, providers and protectors, a role that demanded justice, kindness, and integrity, though the religion did permit men to marry up to 4 wives under specific conditions. Buddhism, on the other hand, views men as those who define, clarify, and direct, while the feminine attunes, resonates, and responds. Across these cultures, masculinity was not just a role, but a calling, a combination of strength, leadership, and spirituality. Now we move ahead to the Renaissance, a period stretching from the 14th to the 17th centuries, a time of extraordinary transformation in Europe, reshaping not only art, science, and culture, but also the very concept of masculinity. This era encouraged men to redefine themselves, blending intellect, creativity, and strength. At the heart of this new vision of manhood was the Renaissance man, men who excelled in multiple fields, from art to science, embodying a truly well-rounded individual. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo personified this ideal. In Da Vinci, a painter, inventor, and engineer, you had a man who wasn't only an artist, but a visionary in every sense of the word. And then Michelangelo, a man who defied the odds of creativity, was known for his work as a sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. Alongside artistic achievements, men during this time also led the charge in science and innovation. Thinkers like Galileo Galilei challenged centuries-old beliefs, laying the foundation for modern science. We go ahead to the Industrial Revolution. This spanned the 18th and 19th centuries. Once again, this era brought changes to society and reshaped the role of men. Factory work, urbanization, and mass production changed the landscape of masculinity. Men had to adjust to long hours in factories, mines, and mills, where the grueling conditions became a daily reality. These places were seen as unfit for women, and men took on the responsibility of being the breadwinner. However, this period also exposed the fragility of the breadwinner role, as the inability to work often meant the family could face starvation. As the 20th century unfolded, 2 world wars would redefine masculinity once again. Men were called upon to serve their countries, and the image of the male soldier as a fearless protector became ingrained in the collective consciousness. The will to fight and die for one's nation made a man real, garnering respect from society, especially women. Selflessness, courage, and responsibility stood out among masculine traits, as husbands went to war in the hopes of serving their nation and protecting their families. As the decades passed, the modern man began to break away from the roles that once defined masculinity. With societal changes, technological advancements, and cultural transformations in the 21st century, men found themselves navigating new identities and responsibilities. Careers in fields like education, healthcare, and the arts, once dominated by women, became common for men. The rise of feminism and the gender equality movement pushed society to become more balanced and equitable. The rise of LGBTQ+ acceptance and cultural inclusivity challenged traditional masculinity, allowing men's sexual and identity expression, a far cry from the accepted norms of the past. The 21st century has seen a dramatic shift in how masculinity is understood. It is no longer a monolithic, one-size-fits-all concept. Instead, society is embracing a more inclusive and diverse understanding of what it means to be a man. Traditional ideals of stoic, dominant masculinity are being replaced by a more fluid and expressive approach, encouraging men to embrace qualities once deemed unmanly. For decades, men were expected to wear clothing with muted colors, avoiding anything too bold. But today, modern men use clothing as a form of self-expression, experimenting with bright colors, accessories, and designs that push the boundaries of what it means to dress as a man. Male celebrities, especially actors and artists, showcase how masculinity has evolved into a more expressive nature, not afraid to experiment with styles or colors. Should men show emotions? Should men cry? These questions continue to surface in today's world, as traditional masculinity is constantly being reevaluated. It is often argued that men during times of battles and wars had no room for emotional expression, and some believe modern men should retain this trait. However, men from those eras suffered pronounced rates of mental health issues and PTSD due to their battle scars. Unlike today, where therapy is widely available, even online, those men had to battle their inner demons alone. Critics argue that suppressing emotions leads to more dangerous complications, ultimately harming both the individual and society. So this called for a more open and accepting approach to emotional vulnerability, encouraging men to express their feelings as a step toward better mental health and healthier relationships. We move on to the role of men in families today. Men are now more likely to share in the responsibilities of parenting and household chores. Stay-at-home dads are no longer a rarity, and co-parenting arrangements have become increasingly common. Not all societies have accepted these changes, though. In many societies, masculinity is still tied to ambition and professional success. The idea that a man's worth is measured by his career achievements remains deeply ingrained, and prioritizing family over work can often lead to stigmatization. In these societies, the pressure on men is to provide for their women. The more financially stable a man is, the higher his status in these societies. And the higher the status, the better the chances of finding a mate. Men here are also expected to tough it out and carry on in the face of life's worst challenges. Men who cry are often seen as weak. Because of these conflicting ideas on what it means to be a man in modern times, many men struggle to redefine their role in society. Men are left to reconcile societal expectations with the desire for personal growth and fulfillment. In the midst of all this, a community of men has emerged, bent on helping men regain their masculinity. Influential, masculine figures and coaches have taken over social media, convinced that they know the ideals of what a perfect man is supposed to be. Although most of their teachings tend to swing towards the extreme, they often struggle to find the balance between being a man and a psychopath.
Oh, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
In conclusion, the evolution of masculinity from traditional to modern is a double-edged sword. While emotional intelligence and self-awareness offer men mental freedom, studies reveal a slow and consistent decline in testosterone levels and an ongoing epidemic of male loneliness. This suggests that, despite societal changes, men of history thrived in terms of risk-taking, confidence, and opportunities. The journey to redefine masculinity is ongoing, and it's clear that men today are facing challenges their predecessors never did. As the future unfolds, the role of men in both the family and society will continue to evolve. The new wave of male role models will challenge toxic masculinity, teaching younger generations to embrace their true selves, even if that means acknowledging their emotional depth and finding the strength that comes with it. Hopefully, men today will find the perfect balance, taking the positive lessons from successful men in the past, filtering them, and forging their own path and dynamics to create a better world. What is your take on this? We'd love to read it in the comments. Did you find this video interesting? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.